Welcome to Idaho. I had to dig out my engine hoist so that I could put my new lathe on its tool cart home. And since I don't dig it out but a couple, 3 times a year, I thought I'd show you some of the improvements I've made to it. Any shop that has just one guy in it needs an engine hoist. I've lifted my lathe. Under that cover is a milling machine. I've removed engines with it, put engines back in, lifted stuff off of trailers and pickups for my neighbors. They're a very useful device. I think this one is Harbor Freight. I bought it off of Craigslist and then made some modifications to it. There are also engine hoists that fold up and store in a small place, and I considered those, but their lifting capacity is not as much, and so I opted for the full-size one. Let's start at the bottom. Typically, the steel casters bolt to the bottom of this bar here, and that makes the engine hoist about 3 inches taller. Well, that's well and good, but some cars that you want to get under, and like getting underneath my milling machine and whatnot, that won't go. So I converted this to what I call a lowrider, and added this piece of channel and welded it in, and then mounted the original wheel to it. And I've done that on all 4 corners, and so it sits about 3 inches lower than it did. And like I said, I can get under very low compact cars. I can get under my milling machine and other places. And if the low rider isn't needed, why, it doesn't matter. One of the other things I did was to make a short handle. Most of the time when I use this jack, I don't need the long handle, and so I made a short handle that stays in there, but it can be removed so that I can use the original long handle. One of the other things I did is to put on steering handles, or bull horns, or whatever you call. These things are hard to drive if they get a load on them, and so by adding a length of pipe on each side, then it's sort of like handlebars on a motorcycle, and it's much easier to drive. And so I'm showing you one handlebar out and one handlebar stored. Basically, it's just a couple of plumbing tees that I welded together and bolted to this main member, and then the little handlebars unscrew from their storage position and then screw into this end of the T, and then I have a 36-inch wide lever that I can steer this lift with. The other major thing that I did is to add a winch and to stiffen up the boom. Most of these things come with a loop here and a chain, and so in order to lift anything you have to change the angle of the boom. Well, that's all well and good, except that every time you change the angle, if you, let's say you're lifting something, well, then this cable gets closer and closer and closer to the lift. And so if you're trying to go straight up with an engine out of an engine bay, you can't do it. And if you want to go straight down with an engine in an engine bay or a milling machine on a stand or whatever, you can't do it. So having a winch with a big pulley adds a lot of usefulness to this thing. I've seen on the internet where people have added an electric winch, but I actually prefer that, not to have that. Let me show you why. With this winch, I can get one click at a time as slowly as I want. So I can go up and I can go down in very small increments, and I can go very slowly. Here's the basics of how I added this big pulley. I cut a notch in the existing boom, the part that extends, and then added pieces of bar stock right in here. I don't know if the lighting is good enough for you to see or not, but I added pieces of bar stock that run the length of that extendable boom, and that way that bolt goes through the original boom material plus another 3/8 of an inch, and then 3/8 of an inch on this side, and then the original boom material. So it's very strong. And by adding that 3/8 of an inch bar stock all the way down, it adds a lot of stiffness to the boom. You can see the plug welds that I did to, or at least you can see some of them, that I did to put that bar in there. The other thing I did was to add another truss bar for two reasons. This truss is what keeps this tube right here from bending, because you got a point load here, and so it tries to bend this tube at this point. Well, by putting a truss on it, you spread that load out over the whole length of the tube, and it's much stronger. So I added a piece of 1/4 inch by 2 bar stock as an additional truss, and then I added a piece of 1/4 inch by 3 to mount the winch on, and then it goes down and welds into the main box channel as well. So this gives me a lot more strength. I have no idea how much, but I'm still using, I think you can see on the other side, I'm still using the original weight limits. Like that bolt holt there is marked 4,000. This one's 2,000. There's a 3,000. This is a 1,000. So I'm certainly more capable than that. So the boom extends out a long ways, but the more you extend it, of course, the less capability you have. So very heavy things, 2-ton things, need to be lifted close to the boom, close to the lift, the hoist, and then lighter things can be lifted quite a ways away. So this is in its second longest position, and then of course the legs extend out as well. The black tube slides inside of the orange tube, and then here's a lock. And so as you extend the pulley out, you need to extend out the feet as well. So that's about all that I've done to this lift. I've used it a lot and it works well. And like I said, if you have a one-man shop and you have to deal with heavy things, it's very useful. And I have a tiny little shop, as I've shown you before. So the way that I deal with the lift and storing it is I put it parallel to the garage door. Like so. Tuck it in. This is how I make up for storing my engine hoist inside is I use that wasted space for a buffer motor with a Scotch-Brite and a wire wheel, and I also put my belt grinder in there. There's sufficient headroom above or below the pulley so that I don't have any issues. I also use the engine hoist to store things. There's a come along and some tie downs and chains and whatnot. And like I said, I only get the hoist out a few times a year, so it works out pretty well. I drive my air compressor over the top of one leg and save wasted space there. So that's the story of my engine hoist and how I use it and store it. I hope this helps somebody. Goodbye from Idaho. As usual, if you like or dislike my video, please select the appropriate button and let me know why. I really appreciate comments and I will answer every one. If you're new to my videos, please select the subscribe and the notification bell to get more videos like this.